Hello, welcome to another maths video by Maths with Sarah. Today we're going to be looking at another maths question from November 2018. It's again a higher paper. It's paper 2, so you can use a calculator, although as seems to be fairly standard for some of these more tricky questions, I'm not sure that you actually need a calculator. It's question 17, so it's definitely a pretty tricky one. But yeah, let's give it a go. So where to start with this one? As with all of these, I encourage you to pause the video here, have a read through the question, give it a little bit of a go yourself. If you can't get very far, then fine. What I'm hoping is that I think the first part of this question is the most tricky part. What I'm hoping is that I can kind of give you that little hint and kind of show you how to do that first part, and then actually you'll realise the question isn't that difficult, but it's just making that jump. The first jump, I think, is one of the hardest ones. Okay, so let's give it a go. We have got P and Q, which are two different numbers. P is bigger than Q. When you subtract 5 from P and subtract 5 from Q, the answers are in the ratio 5:1. When you add 20 to P and you add 20 to Q, the answers are in the ratio of 5:2. And we want to find the ratio of P to Q and give our answer in its simplest form. So you might not believe me, but this is actually a simultaneous equation question. We've got two unknowns and we've got to figure out what they are. The problem is we've got to build the equations first. So let's get started. Let's deal with one first. So we've got this one here, or the first sentence we've been given. We've been told that when we subtract 5 from P, so we've got P subtract 5 and subtract 5 from Q. So then we've got Q subtract 5. And we've been told that that is in the ratio of 5:1. Okay, how do we get from a ratio to an equation? At the moment, this is tricky. What we ideally need is to turn this into an equation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. We have got, I'm going to use some ratio boxes. So we have got, this is 1 compared to 5. Hopefully you should all be familiar with ratio boxes. If you haven't seen them before, I have got them in some other videos as well, where I explain them in a little bit more detail, but because of the complexity of this one, I'm gonna leave it just for that. Okay, let's look at this now then. So we know that this box here is equal to Q minus 5. That therefore means that every other box in this ratio setup is also equal to Q minus 5. So each one of these boxes is Q minus 5, Q minus 5, and Q minus 5. Okay, what you might now be realizing is that we have 5 lots of Q minus 5, and that is equal to P minus 5. This is where I think the biggest jump is, understanding that that's what's going on here. Okay, hopefully because I've tried to draw it quite visually, you can imagine what's going on here. We've got 5 lots of Q minus 5 being equal to 1 lot of P minus 5. Okay, so let's set that up as an equation. We've got P minus 5 is equal to 5 lots of Q minus 5. We can then obviously expand those brackets so that we've got slightly easier looking equation. So we can end up with 5Q minus 25. Okay. Then we can actually simplify it a little bit further by adding 5 to both sides so that we end up with P on its own being equal to 5Q, adding 5 to this side as well, 5Q minus 20 rather than minus 25. And if it's a little bit easier, because I want to make this as simple as possible, I'll draw some method lines so we can add 5 to both sides. Okay, let's now look at the second equation, see if we can set up the second equation. Okay, The second equation, again, obviously, if you feel now that you've got this kind of first hint of where to go, making that initial jump, and you think you can give the second one a go, then by all means, give that a try, yeah? And you can always check back on the video because I'll go through the second one as well. So when we add 20 to P plus 20, and we add 20 to Q, the answers are in the ratio 5 to 2. I realised I've drawn that miles further over, so I was going to give something else there. 5 to 2. Okay, this one obviously is a step further. It's a little bit more complicated, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it. It just means that we've got to work a little bit harder. So again, another set of ratio boxes. We can draw them 5 to 2. And then obviously this one will be split in half. This one will be split into 5. Not as equal as I might have liked, but it's fine. Okay, what next then? So Q plus 20 is obviously split between these two boxes, isn't it? Yeah, so we know that 2 lots of Q plus 20, sorry, that's not true. 5 lots of Q plus 20 is equal to 2 lots of P plus 20. I'll say that again. 2 lots of P plus 20 is equal to 5 lots of Q plus 20. Yeah, so if we put Q plus 20 in each of these and P plus 20 in each of these, we can understand that those two are equal. That's what we've got here. Okay, I'm going to write that out. We have got 5 lots of Q plus 20 is equal to 2 lots of P plus 20. Okay, I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I'm just going to use a similar ratio box situation as we've got here to try and demonstrate that a little bit better. So here we have got, basically, if we're splitting this Q plus 20 across the two boxes, we've basically got half a Q plus 10 in each box. This is Q over 2 plus 10 in each of these boxes. Yep, and I would have to write that in each of those, but just for time's sake, I'm going to write. Okay, so now if we want to go back to this one, we can say, okay, well, P plus 20, i.e. this part here, is equal to 5 lots of Q over 2 plus 10. Okay, Q over 2 plus 10. Okay, so if you didn't quite understand where I was going with this first lot, talking about 2 lots of P plus Q equaling the same as, 2 lots of P plus 20 equaling the same as 5Q plus 20, hopefully these ratio boxes will make it easier. We've got 5 lots of Q over 2 plus 10, which is what each box is equal to 1 lot of P plus 20. Okay, if we now kind of untangle this equation, we end up with P plus 20 is equal to 5Q over 2 plus 50. So I'm going to be honest, pretty nasty little looking equation, but it works for now. If we'd done this, if we'd used this equation, we'd have ended up exactly the same. We just wouldn't have ended up with a fraction. We'd have ended up with 2P plus 40 is equal to 5Q plus 100. So it's on the opposite sides of the equal sign, but hopefully you can see that these two equations are actually equal. It's just that this one here is half of the one above. Okay, we've got this equation over here now. So we've got 2 different equations. We've got this equation here, and we've got this equation here. Now I'm going to just alter this equation slightly so that both of them are in the form P equals something, because that's going to help me. In case you hadn't realised, at this point, we're now just doing simultaneous equations, essentially. We need to find out a P value and a Q value. The easiest way of doing that is to eliminate one of them. I'm going to set both equations equal to P, and then I can eliminate P. If we do that, we end up with 5q over 2 plus, I'm taking away 20 from both sides just to give me p on its own, plus 30. Okay, as I said, we've now got our two equations set up. That was by far the hardest part of this. If you can get to these equations by yourself, massive well done, because that's definitely the most tricky part of this. So now, the last part is the simultaneous equation part. We've worked out 5q, take away 20, so that's this part here, which we know is equal to p, is equal to this p here of 5q over 2 plus 30. So I'm going to start by getting rid of the plus 30. Obviously, now we're just literally putting method lines in, just solving this equation, working out what q is. I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides. As much as I don't like negative numbers, I want to deal with this fraction. So we're going to end up with 5q minus 50 is equal to 5q over 2. I'm now going to multiply everything by 2, get rid of this annoying fraction, which is going to give me, remember, you've got to multiply everything by q. So we're going to end up with 10q minus 100 is equal to 5q. Whereas I'm running out of space a little bit here, so I apologize if this ended up a little bit squashed. I am then going to take away 5q from each side. Again, obviously, this is just solving an equation, so hopefully you're relatively all right with this. And obviously, there are many different ways of doing this. I'm going to take away 5q, so I'm going to end up with 5q. And then at the same time, I'm going to add 100 to both sides so that I have something on the side rather than leaving it with 0. So again, I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm going to end up with 5q is equal to 100. And then lastly, divide by 5 to end up with q is equal to 20. Great. A good start. We found out what q is equal to. Now, obviously, as with any of these simultaneous equations, we can then choose which equation we use to find out what q is. This has got a fraction in it. I'm not going anywhere near this one if I can help it. So I'm now going to use the first equation, which is this one over here. I'm going to do p is equal to 5 times q, which is 20, same as 5 times 20, which is 100. Take away 20. So I'm using this equation over here. I'm substituting my q equals 20 value into here. So I'm doing 5 times 20, which is 100, take away 20. So then my p value is going to be equal to 100 take away 20, which is, of course, 80. Okay. Now, I feel like I'm pretty much done, but I'm going to go back to the questions and just check that I've answered everything and everything fits. Okay. We've got p and q are two numbers such that p is greater than q. Good. P is 80, q is 20. That fits that first bit. When you subtract 5 from p and subtract 5 from q, so we're going to end up with 75 and 15. The ratios are the answer in the ratio 5 to 1. Good, they are. When you add 20 to p, we're going to end up with 100, and add 20 to q, we're ending up with 40. The ratios are the answer in the ratio of 5 to 2. Again, they are. It fits. Okay, we can simplify this down to 5 to 2, and then if we've got 75 to 15, again, obviously we can simplify that to 5 to 1. This is looking good so far. We've managed to check that our answers fit the criteria we've been given. Okay, let's look at the last bit. Find the ratio of p to q. Okay, so we need to write this in terms of a ratio. So we're going to write it as p to q is 8 to 20. Okay, we've done that bit. Give your answer in its simplest form. We need to do that bit. Start off by dividing each by 10, 8 to 2, and then we can divide them further, each of those by 2 to give us 4 to 1. So we've now put it in its simplest form. Our p to q, the ratio, is 4 to 1. And this is our final answer. Okay, definitely a tricky question. And I think by far the hardest bit is working out what's going on with these, how to turn the ratios into an equation that you can solve. Once you get to the simultaneous equation bit, it's a much lower grade question. Like this part here is actually relatively straightforward, but I think the really tough part of this is getting from a ratio to how we can turn that into an equation that we can then use to solve. Okay, so absolutely massive well done if you for one thing followed it, but secondly, if you managed to do it yourself, absolutely amazing. Essentially, we're just kind of cross multiplying, but if it helps you to use the ratio boxes, I think they're a brilliant tool for being able to visualize what's going on here. Okay, tough question, but actually a relatively simple answer, and we can check our answer quite nicely to check if we've got the right answer. Okay, hope that all made sense. Do feel free to ping me any questions, or if there's any requests for specific questions or videos, either from this paper or from other papers. I hope you have a great day, and please like and subscribe to look at if you want any other videos.